Dr. Hayes, welcome to the Easy Conversations podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Really looking forward to our conversation. We've had the opportunity to talk offline previously and found a lot to discuss and patterns that we'll talk about and the presence, which I believe gets used a lot, especially even in the therapeutic world that I operate in, but seldom gets understood fully. And sometimes we create this idea that it needs to be something grand, but it can just happen in the simplest things. And I've been able to experience that at times, but then it's something we end up chasing as well. So I'm sure we will explore all of that. But before we get into it, I do want to give you an opportunity to share with the listeners a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what's brought you here today.
Yeah, outstanding. I'm excited to be here. Thank you. Who am I? I'm a recovering psychologist and a self awareness junkie and a doctor of leadership. And I've spent a long time in the field of helping people get out of their own way, uncovering their own potential. I did that running treatment centers for a while, drug and alcohol recovery centers. I worked outpatient in mental health for a while, worked with not extreme, excuse me, chronic mental illness, uh, from family therapy to couples therapy. And now I work in more of the executive space. So
Mm,
in the last 20 years, I've focused all of that into helping leaders
mm,
lead with purpose,
yes.
to lead with presence, with awareness, with intention, and with vision. For me, it's the quadfecta, the four legs of the stool that really help an individual have the biggest impact possible. I grew up in Flint, Michigan,
Yeah.
which, if you know anything about Flint, you know that it got devastated when GM left. My
Mhm.
father worked for General Motors for 34 years, and I watched how profound it was when it worked well. It paid for my education, but then it went belly up, and I watched the whole infrastructure of the city erode, and I watched just horrible stuff happen in the community, and made a commitment to really focus on helping businesses not have to go through that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, to help
Yeah.
leaders know how to lead, help business owners know how to be a good leader and a good owner in a way that isn't just reactive to what's around it, but really to have clear vision and to move concisely that
Yes.
direction. So I love it. My path along the way has included, I guess it hasn't required, but for me, it's been a requirement long periods of time in monastic environments,
Hmm.
studying my mind from the inside out to understand what is it that makes humans tick, not just
Yeah.
me, but us as humans, and to understand some of those key levers you can pull to
Hmm.
begin to live life on my terms
Yeah.
and to live life in a way that's not just reactive, as I think I had spent most of my life just reacting to what I perceived. And I think most people do.
Yes.
I think there's a way to do it differently after
Hmm.
studying silently my own mind and reading and researching. Oh, there's some ways to do it differently. The
Yeah.
cool thing is, there's nothing new under the sun. It's
Yeah.
stuff that's been around for thousands of years, but
Right.
it's not as easy as just reading. It's not a cognitive process. It's a transformative process that
Yes.
requires your whole being. I love it. I'm glad to be here because I know we are kindred spirits in that regard in our quest. And
Yeah.
so I'm excited about the discussion ahead.
Well, I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing a lot of that. And immediately, the first question that comes to mind, because I've been in the corporate world and I've been around many leaders and I've seen leadership styles that work and styles that don't work. And then I've also had the privilege of working in the addiction space as well, in some cases outpatient as well. And I see some of the underlying patterns and how shame can creep up and lead to specific behaviors that on the surface we only focus on, but we don't necessarily get into the depths of understanding what are the emotions that are driving those behavior
Mhm.
aids. Now, knowing that you've both worked on both sides, what skills were you able to transfer from your space in recovery, like working in recovery, now working with leaders? What are some of those skills that you've been able to transfer over?
It's interesting that my observation when I started to get into more of the executive space was that there are two populations that get help.
Yeah.
Those who are having addiction issues, there's treatment centers. And then I find there's executives have leadership development.
Mm.
And the reality is, it's exactly the same skill set. It's no different. It's understanding how our attachment to our ideas, our attachment to our beliefs, our
Hmm.
attachment to our self concept. Through attachment, we create suffering.
Hmm.
And that suffering then takes the form of any of those hidden emotions, whether it's shame or it's guilt or it's fear, emotions that are uncomfortable. And then so many times I see in the executive space, the way individuals hide that is no different than addiction. It's like
Yeah.
we find a way to keep that suppressed and do this other thing. And whether it's the adrenaline rush or it's some sort of dopamine hit, gambling is the addiction. I've seen sex addictions, whether it's drugs and alcohol. It's a way of, in this hedonistic way that we are based as humans, we move towards some sort of comfort. We don't like that the uncomfortable feeling, even if it's unhealthy, will move towards what's familiar and what's comfortable. And it
Hmm.
doesn't matter. It's an addiction in any world. So it's interesting how many people are like functional addicts. And it's
Yes.
not that they use substances, but that they numb themselves. They numb themselves from the reality. And some of it's existential. This fact that underneath it all, life is ephemeral
Mm-hmm.
in that we have this belief somehow that we aren't good enough, and the belief that we don't measure up, we aren't good enough, we got legitimately.
Yes.
In my mind, you think we come into the world as feral creatures with this wide open energy, and we learn to constrain that. We learn that this is the okay zone, that you're not okay. And part of you is not okay. And so
Right.
we walk around with this guilt and the shame and this fear and all this stuff that we don't like. So we stuff it down. And how do we do that? Oh, just be better, be smarter, be faster, be the one who's always pleasing. And we
Hmm.
lose ourselves in that. We never find who we are because we always have to be the pleaser to be okay. We always have to be the one who wins. We always have to be the responsible, the dependable. The whole world's on our shoulders. And in that way, there's this kind of equation. We wear this mask to keep our ghosts hidden. And the only way to keep the ghost hidden is to wear the mask. But the
Yes.
mask is so limiting. The thing that I love is when people understand that and
Hmm.
they learn to pull off the mask, and then the ghost comes up, right? Then they start to feel like they're not okay and realize that's just a thought. It's a
Hmm.
ghost. And it's
Hmm.
just a feeling, a sensation. And it's just something in their body, but that's it.
Yeah.
It's nothing more than that. And it can't
Yes.
hurt you. It
Yeah.
can't control you. It's not, it's my experience is it's not the shame and the guilt and the fear and the regret and all of that. It's our relationship with that part of us. In and of itself has no power, but it's the way we relate to it that we give it power. And what if you stop resisting against it? That's what happened for me. At one point, I gave myself permission just to be an idiot because I was so tightly wound because people are going to find me out.
Yes.
They're going to realize that I'm an imposter. They're going
Yeah.
to realize that I don't have it all together. And when I stopped trying to be cool, stopped trying to be smart, stopped trying to have it all together, and just allowed myself to be a fool, something shifted. Oh, I don't have to. I can be the fool. I can be the idiot.
Yeah.
And it's like I embrace this part of myself, the ghost. And then I realized, oh, I'm not an idiot, just not resisting that part of myself.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a profound shift
Hmm.
when I just allowed myself to be whole.
Yeah.
And that means to have a shadow.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're touching on a lot of things I can relate to. So I'm going to try to pick up on a few threads here and hopefully bring them all together. But I do agree with you. I think there's this aspect of acceptance for self that you don't have to be anything. You don't have to be perfect, nor do you have to be a fool. You could just be. And that's what I appreciate about being in nature because everything is just there and it's doing what it's meant to do. And somehow we've put all this pressure on ourselves to be something else and fill these shoes rather than just being. And that takes so much pressure off. And I do agree with you. I'm glad you touched on that because that's been my observation too. In the leadership space, the behaviors are manifesting differently, but the underlying cause is the same. But unfortunately, some of these behaviors are glorified in society, whether you're working
Mhm.
70 to 80 hours a week, you're chasing achievements or titles. all of that gets celebrated in a way. And then often that behavior can just be taking place. And like you said, you may be wearing a mask. And then there is that aspect of the shadow, like you touched on, is if you're not integrating it, then it is driving your life. And it
Mhm.
on the surface, it seems like you're killing it, you're successful, but it's actually taken over your life. And I have clients who come in, they're like, on paper, everything looks great, but I still don't feel whole inside. Like something's missing. And that's the existential piece. Then you have
Mhm.
to help them connect the dots.
Yeah.
I've thrown a lot at you, but just wanted to get your thoughts. This was more of a reflection based on what I was hearing
Yeah.
from you. But yeah, it's that existential piece. So, how do we focus on that? And how has that been for you? I'd love to just talk through that as well.
Well, one thing you said I love is you don't have to be perfect. And I would push even further and say you can't.
Right.
There is no such thing.
Yeah.
To be human is to be fallible. To be human is to make mistakes. But the patterns we developed, we got legitimately.
Mm.
I think about when I came into the world, the youngest child in my family, I didn't have programming in my neurocircuitry, right? I had a brain, but my mind wasn't really formed. The patterns weren't there, the self concept wasn't there. And I developed this niche in my family. I played the role, which is so textbook youngest
Yes.
child. I'm that like, wait, where's free will in this? If I mean, this actually happened. I was in a little bookstore in northern Michigan, and I found a book called the Birth Order Book. And I thought, this is interesting. And I turned right to the page on youngest child, and I'm standing in the bookstore reading this book. And I'll paraphrase. It said, "You can't fool me, youngest child. I know you just skipped every other section, turned to this section about you, and started reading." And I remember looking over my shoulder and, oh my goodness, this guy's got my mail. And I closed the book, walked up and bought it. And that was Kevin Lehman's birth order book. And it's just astounded me to see how much this programming that I adopted early on simply by my birth order that still drives how I show up today.
Mhm.
And to be able to understand that we think we have free will, but we have free will the same way a fish in a bowl has free will to go wherever it wants. There's very limited constraints.
Right.
And this is, but we stay in, what is it? We stay in our comfort zone. My comfort zone is playing that same role I learned to play when I was 3 years old and my brain was forming a million neural connections per minute. So now I'm starting to be influenced by my environment and I know what am I trying to do? Get my attention needs met. And I do it different than my older siblings. So I learned to be the charming manipulator as the youngest child, the guy with a joke, doesn't take anything seriously. The rules don't apply. That's how I survived then, got my
Yeah.
attention needs met. It's wild now to see decades later that same role is played out through
Yes.
me. And I asked myself, who's me in all this?
Yep.
Because this is the role I developed.
Mhm.
This isn't really me. This is just the programming. And the programming is attached to my thinking, my feeling, my behaving. There's patterns. And this is the thing I find for myself when I perceive things that validate that programming, I feel good. It gives me a good warm feeling. I feel confident and secure. It's so conditional, though. That's
Yes.
not the real me.
Right.
Then when I perceive things that challenge that success script or that ego, that programming I did when things
Mhm.
invalidated, oh, I get knocked off my game. I
Right.
start to self doubt. The ghost comes out. Now, all of this is so conditional. I discovered along the way through my own personal exploration is that all those identities are not me. The real me is something, it's that energetic beyond the constraint. That's the presence, right? The
Yes.
presence to be able to be in the here, in the now moment, and to wake up to this deeper or higher energy source. And it is really energy. You can feel it. And this is the funny thing growing up like, as a guy, right? In the Midwest, in the 70s, big boys don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about. Never let them see you sweat. I had no awareness of my emotion. I lived from the neck up. And my role was to always be happy go lucky, no problem in the world, even when I was melting down inside. I didn't have the skill set to be aware of it. All I knew how to do was to cling to this mask of being okay.
Yeah.
And it was interesting that dissonance,
Yes.
how when it all came to a head and a meltdown happened internally. And that was part of the work, is letting myself be the fool and sitting, sizzling in my own juice, my own angst, and realizing that was who I was and that was okay. And angst is part of the condition. They
Yes.
call it the human condition, and that's okay. Don't react against it. Don't want it to be different than it is. It is. So the only truth there is the truth I'm experiencing in myself right now. It's not a cognitive thing, it's experiential. And man, when I woke up and I learned through meditation how to become aware of myself at a real energetic, like a subatomic level that I never believed was possible until I experienced it, it changed everything for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really phenomenal just to see that we have this kind of power. But I think as humans in our culture, we are attuned to things outside of us.
Yes.
And we never really learn the skill set to become so intricately self aware of how our energy gets blocked and how our subconscious mind is always in our body. Right? When we're sleeping, we'll roll over in our sleep. How cool is that then to recognize if your subconscious mind is always aware of your body? And if you can bring your conscious awareness into your body, you start to wake up to their unconscious drives. It's the point of change.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sorry, I go on a long
No,
story, but
no,
oh
that's
my
okay.
goodness, it gets me fired up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that fishbowl analogy is great because we do tend to limit ourselves, perhaps even using that analogy because the constraints we put on ourselves are metaphysical in nature. And then we often wonder, why am I experiencing similar situations? Why is this not happening for me? Or why does this keep happening? It's because you are the one limiting yourself. And sometimes just recognizing you are an active agent in your life or you have
Mhm.
influence and taking on that responsibility can be a huge shift, but most people are not willing to go there. And I know you're touching on the whole, it just feels familiar and it feels comfortable. So then how do you bring people to that understanding in terms of you have a choice in this and you can influence a lot more than you actually give yourself credit for?
It's humans are amazing. We're such a resilient bunch. And the truth is the truth, right? And it's like there's some magnetic quality around it. It's not my truth, and it's not a religious truth. There is, I believe, there is truth, and you can experience that in
Yes.
yourself. And it's not in the form of a concept, it's in the form of raw experience right
Yes.
now. So I was on the phone earlier with someone who was complaining about the culture of their organization, completely frustrated and talking, spent a lot of energy about what
Mhm.
was wrong with the organization. I thought it was brilliant. Right? There's the part of the brain we know is the reticular activating system, right? It's that filter that when we have, well, I decided I was going to buy a red Jeep. And as soon as I made that decision, I started seeing red Jeeps everywhere and just Jeeps. Where were they before? Suddenly they start showing up. And so it was interesting to share that story with this guy and notice how you have a belief that the culture is not working. And that's what you see everywhere. The original teaching of the Buddha, and it's in Christianity as well. Whether you call it, it all starts with the word or
Yes.
with your thoughts, you create the world, but conception is powerful and we believe the conception is true. But
Right.
the hard thing is that becomes the filter. And then we see things that support it. And when things challenge that conception that we believe, it evokes the negative emotion and we become self righteous or angry and we behave driven by emotion. So to be able to help folks even understand that all of the narrative you're telling is sure it's true, it's your narrative, but that's why in positive psychology gratitude is so powerful. If you
Yes.
notice what's right, you're tuning your reticular activating system. Your red Jeep that you're seeing is what's working. And guess
Mhm.
what, when you start to recognize that you're in charge, because he didn't realize, this individual didn't realize, in all the problems he was seeing with the culture, he was that problem. And when he recognized and separated himself, like objectively observing himself to notice the narrative, the negative narrative in his head, he recognized, wait, I have a choice. Whoa, we have a choice in the narrative we create. And with your thoughts, you create the world. And so, yeah, if you're in a negative place where the culture doesn't work, you absolutely you
Yes.
live in that culture.
Right.
And if you tune yourself that you're going to see what works, you're going to start seeing more and more of that. Then you become an agent of that positive change.
Mhm.
So for me, the wake up is for folks to recognize they can do it differently. They
Mhm.
have a choice, and that suffering doesn't come from the outside world.
Great.
Pain, yes, pain's an actual physical sensation in our body. Suffering is what we create on ourselves
Mhm.
because of our clinging and our attachment to our ideas of being
Yes.
right in our worldview. And we know, and they don't get it. And every time I think my wife doesn't get it, I'm the problem. It's like,
Yeah.
how do I melt that down, melt through all of that? It's not a destination, right?
Right.
Having been on this pathway for decades, it's a pathway.
Yeah.
And it's a
Yeah. And
pathway of wisdom. And that's what I love. Helping folks recognize they get to choose.
yeah.
You can be on a entrenched pathway of misery where over time, those patterns that you developed early on, for me, it's like being the youngest child. And you talked about the leadership style, some work. I'd say no leadership style works all the time. And that's the thing that, but I'll become more and more entrenched and know that my way is the right way. And it's like all this neurocircuitry becomes more and more confining. And
Mhm.
then you see the crotchety SOB, the old guy who's never happy and cantankerous. Or we can evolve into wisdom, a sense of letting go,
Mhm.
sense of curiosity and grace in our lives. And that is a choice. And that is how I think we get out of the fishbowl because I see the folks who choose to be right and their world gets smaller and tighter and hotter and more claustrophobic and they're just unhappy. And then you see folks who let go. It's like their fishbowl gets bigger and bigger and they're not driven by comfort. They're driven by vision
Yeah. Yeah.
and they get decide how they want to show up. I love it. You know, the stories of Christ on the cross and he's getting speared in the chest. And when you're feeling physical pain is a great time to come out with anger. That's what we do. But not this guy says, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing.
Mm.
There's a model of how we can stop reacting to our physical sensations. And
Mhm.
emotion is a physical sensation.
Mhm.
More often than not, it drives us.
Yes.
When I'm angry, you know it.
Right.
It's driving me. I blow up or I get sharp or I cut you down or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I'm not in
Absolutely.
charge of me.
Yeah. And to your point, the body is there's so many physiological responses taking place when we're experiencing these emotions, right? It is a sensation that we can pay attention to. And again, I think what you're talking about when you realize you have a choice, that's the beauty of free will. And some people don't fully appreciate that. They're like, what do you mean there's free will? And I think that's it. You have a choice in many aspects of your life, and you get to decide what you pay your
It's
attention
tough
to.
though. Hard
Yeah.
when you recognize that you have 100% accountability for yourself. Whenever you want to blame somebody else and say they're the problem, you are out of your power.
Yes.
Whenever you make excuses, whenever you are defensive, all of that, you're out of your power. The step into your power, that zone, 100% ownership, accountability, responsibility. And as soon as you see somebody else is the problem, then your fishbowl gets smaller.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a hard path to walk, though.
And I think that's what you had mentioned previously is how do you become aware of these patterns, right? So are you able to expand on that a little bit more beyond what you've already
Absolutely. So
presented?
it starts with kind of you talked at the very beginning about presence. Most folks, but we're trained not to be present, especially in this high tech world. We're not here and now. We're somewhere else, some
Right.
other time, some other place. Being able, the first step, the foundation of awareness, awareness never happens without presence. For me, it's two sides of the coin,
Mhm.
learning how to be anchored in this moment. And that's why I love just focusing on breath. That's meditation, right? Just focus
Yes.
on the actual sensation of your breath brings you single pointedly into this moment. And I love it. I challenge all the listeners to try focusing on your breathing for 2 minutes and watch how easy it is. Not your mind is like a wild animal and it just runs everywhere except to the present moment because you've trained it.
Yeah.
And it's like in losing presence, the ego retains identity. And in coming back to presence, the ego loses identity because
Mhm.
right here, right now, There's only right here, right now. There's not this whole narrative we constructed. The brilliant thing is for me is that when you can then focus and be here now through the vehicle of your attention, then to move your attention into the actual physical body, to become aware and to notice that those patterns of thinking are also married to patterns of feeling, are also married to patterns of sensation,
Mhm.
right? So when things don't go my way, when I'm attached to, I have the self concept, important and I'm smart. So I love it. I was doing this presentation. This is years ago. When I first started presenting, I remember this so clearly. I'm a very creative speller. That means I don't spell well. So I'm in front of this group of 50 people and I got flip charts and I'm writing and I'm a good facilitator. I'm not a good speller.
Yeah.
I'm in front of the group and it's dynamic. I'm feeling in my zone. Somebody raises their hand and points out, "Oh, you spelled that word wrong on the flip chart." And right immediately, what's that do? It invalidates my self concept of being smart because being smart was the mask I learned to wear. If I'm smart, then you don't see that I don't measure up. You don't see I'm an idiot. You don't see I'm worthless. I see I'm smart. And in that moment, it shot right through that mask. And suddenly it evoked this physical sensation in me. And I found myself getting hot. And
Mhm.
suddenly I'm breathing funny. And it was interesting how during the rest of that conversation with that group, I avoided that individual. Not knowing, right? I didn't know how to manage
Yes.
myself in
Yeah.
all of that. So presence is the platform for awareness. But then with awareness, the key is then we have a choice. That's why I say once you have presence, presence what? Here, now, to
Yeah.
be able to bring your attention into this very moment and then to bring it into the actual body and to notice the content of your mind, to notice your emotion, to feel it, and to
Mhm.
sense the sensations in your body. Then from that place, you're in a position of choice. For
Mhm.
me, that's really intention to
Yes.
know because most of us are reacting out of the sensation.
Mhm.
It's uncomfortable. We don't like it. So we do the things that create the positive sensation. And we're hedonistic. And that goes back to addiction.
Yes.
We don't like certain sensations. And so we move towards what feels better or numbs it out.
Yeah.
And whether it's a sensation, whether it happens by just focusing on 10 hours of Netflix or drugs and alcohol or sex addiction, whatever it is, it keeps us on a hedonistic path
Yes.
of just not liking that sensation of the moment.
Yeah.
But for me, so the awareness is like the balance, it's equanimity. That's the point of intention is non-reactivity.
Yep.
Okay, here I am. Your job as a leader is not to be comfortable. It's to move in alignment with the last step in my mind is the vision.
Mhm.
Where are you trying to be? Who do
Yes.
you want to be? In this gift of life, what's your vision of who you want to be? What if you could move and make decisions that directed you that way instead of letting that autopilot programming dictate how you show up?
Yep.
And that's a big unraveling.
Yes. Yes.
It's tough and it's a big letting go.
Mhm.
And it requires you to be able to sit in the middle of your own squeamishness
Yep.
and be okay and realize that it's going to be okay.
Yes. Yeah.
There's not some end to it all. This is the point.
Right.
This is it. How you live your life right now. This is the top of the mountain.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think what will go to extreme lengths to mask those uncomfortable feelings of pain, fear, and shame. And often it is counterintuitive because we'll act in ways that make it even worse. If you were an observer watching yourself in a movie, you'd be like, well, it'd be cringy because you'd be like, oh, why is this actor behaving this way? And it's interesting. We don't pay attention to those things. And I've had moments like where you shared you made a mistake or you had a spelling error on the flip chart. And I know this is really hard, but often it requires us to sometimes shift our perspective and be like, this is an invitation for me to be humble and really step into it, which brings me closer to my authentic self. Instead, to your point earlier, we tend to resist it. And that's where the friction takes place, right? The dissonance, all of it is happening in that moment. And how can you just look at it as, okay, this is a gift, this is an opportunity instead of this person's out to get me.
It's interesting. Our minds are addicted to content
Mm.
and will rebel. Again, that's the survival of the ego is through the
Yes.
narrative we construct. And so it's so difficult. That space, that pause can be the hardest pause because we feel the sense of urgency, like we have to say the thing or do the, but
Mhm.
giving yourself permission to just pause, to not say anything in that moment, and to just then turn in and realize I am churned up inside. And to have, I like to think of it as a hip pocket response with the other person. You know what? I have to use the restroom really quick. Let me get up and excuse myself. Or whatever it is, give yourself a little pause, give yourself a window of opportunity because in my mind, it's like I think of the sky. The sun is always out there. That's our internal energy. But
Yes.
sometimes the sky is thick with cloud cover.
Mhm.
And that's all of our thoughts. And our thoughts get so heavy and thick that we lose sight of our own presence and our own aliveness only happens in the present moment. So we can tap into it by putting down our thinking. And just that's why I love like opening your awareness and moving it into your body. You wake up to your consciousness. You wake your consciousness up. You
Mhm.
wake your body up. You wake your mind up. All of it. It doesn't happen through, I've studied, I've read books and books and books and books. And let me tell you, I studied philosophy.
Yeah.
It doesn't come through language. Right? Language is just a symbol we've created that's pointing towards something. It's like we're all sitting around pointing at the moon, staring at each other's finger, and nobody's seeing the moon,
Yes.
right? You put that all down. Can you just be present in this moment,
Yes.
regardless of how it feels?
Mhm.
And just breathe. And that's what I love. The breath is always there. Come back to the breath. Oh, and I've known my own anxiety. I spent a lot of time in meditation centers. I learned how to meditate and spent a lot of time deconstructing and coming up, understanding this conversation we're having now. It didn't just happen overnight, it happened decades. And I remember going through anxiety, having a panic attack. I was driving down the road one time, and suddenly I was like overwhelmed with this emotion and this disorienting thought. I thought I was going crazy in that
Mhm.
moment. And I remember just coming back to my breath. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not sure what's happening, but here's my breath. And right here, right now, my breath is okay. I'm having a heart attack. And I remember I was driving with somebody and I just looked at him and said, would you mind driving for a while? He had no idea what was going on. I'm freaking out in my head. Pulled over, got out. He drove. I sat in the passenger seat and just kept breathing. And I realized as I breathed, I didn't resist against the anxiety that was overwhelming me. And I've learned that when I do resist against, it just
Mhm.
builds, it builds and builds until it owns me. Instead, it cascaded over me. I just kept breathing, and lo and behold, I came out the other side.
Mhm.
It's just amazing what happens when you don't react against what your experience is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And turning your presence inward, and I don't say this with judgment because I was there too, but so many men, especially, I find, are focused on what are people thinking about them, right? Am I getting the approval I'm seeking? What are these people thinking about me so I can feel good about myself? And that's not turning your presence inward. You're looking outside
For
for
validation.
validation or information to tell you how you should feel. And that's where the authenticity is lost. So again, it comes back to I see so many people then being performative in order to fit in, but unfortunately, it's taking away from their true self. And then they don't even know what that true self is. And
We
then,
never learn it.
yeah, and then that's where the existential crisis comes in for so many people because they realize they've been wearing a mask their whole life. And now it's like, do I take this off? And if I do,
Mhm.
what's going to happen? I don't know what.
That's where all the fear arises. And that's when you welcome the fear because it's only a sensation in your body. And it's your body, your ego clinging, trying to get you not to let go of it.
Yeah.
But that is so limiting. And the thing I love about that, think about men. I was the therapist who learned how to be a man.
Yeah.
What's that mean? As a man, keep all your emotion down, never let them see you sweat. To be strong is to be stoic, but to be a therapist was to be open,
Mhm.
vulnerable, aware. They're two very different stories.
Yeah.
Like, how do you resolve that? And for me, it all goes back to, I think, my original program when I programmed my mind growing up, learning, wanting to make the authority figures happy. The gods and goddesses in my world, my survival was dependent on getting my attention needs met.
Mhm.
I learned to do the thing, got made mom happy, made dad happy. The hard thing is it gets ingrained in my neural fabric. And now here I am 4 decades later, playing out the same pattern, thinking it's me, but it's just an ancient pattern.
Yes.
And it's not the path to happiness. Validation for that is conditional. It's
Yeah.
conditional happiness.
Yes.
It's not, it's all interesting. You think about what's it mean to be happy. And for me, I don't even know if I like the word happy. I like content.
Yeah.
Can you
I
just
agree.
be okay? Peace. Can you be at peace? And that means true peace isn't conditioned based on what's happening around you. Anybody can smile when everything's going their way.
Yeah.
But the guy who worthwhile is the one who can smile when everything goes dead wrong. That was my meditation teacher said that, and it always sticks with me. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's easy to say,
Yes.
man,
Yeah.
but I love it. So I work with executives around the country, and if I get a message from one of my clients who's somehow I'm interpreting what they're saying as their displeasure with me, whether or not it is, I'm sensitized to that because I'm a pleaser.
Mhm.
So it immediately triggers, and man, I will not sleep at night. It'll keep me up. 50 years old, and I feel like I'm in trouble. It's crazy how these ancient drives are still alive. And I've
Yes.
been working on this like you for years, for decades, but it's still there. It still comes out.
Of
And
course.
it's still about awareness. It's not about getting rid of it. That's the thing I think that trips most people up is they want to get rid of. Oh, if I just wasn't afraid anymore. It's not the
Yep.
pathway.
Yeah.
Just how about letting yourself be afraid and be okay with it?
Yep.
I see the bumper stickers, no fear. I'm like, that's more, I think, ignorant, right?
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss. No
Right.
fear. Okay, no fear is not it.
Yeah.
Can you have fear and still do the thing you want to do,
Yes. Yes.
as opposed to letting fear be in charge, letting shame be in charge?
Yeah. Yeah. When I think even that concept of no fear is a defense mechanism, right? So that way you don't have to, you're basically convincing yourself that's the ultimate goal when it's not that. It's more, like you said, just being aware of it and letting it pass through you rather than resisting it. And I agree. I think happiness is fleeting. It's really, where can you find contentment or peace or joy? And can you
Mhm.
be in those moments or spaces of time where you're by yourself, and how do you feel? And like you said earlier, we have these smartphones now that escape is always an option. It's always
Mhm.
there. And
Pulling
people,
us.
yes, and people get so uncomfortable in those moments of silence or stillness. And those are the most powerful moments throughout our day if we can cultivate some way of connecting with ourselves and turning that presence inwards. And then through that presence is when you can have, like you said, awareness, even when you can catch yourself when you're falling back into old patterns.
Mhm.
I had a realization last week, and I've obviously spent a lot of time working on these things, but like you said, I still trip up. And I noticed myself getting hooked into a situation and just reacting. And then I had to pause, and I'm like, okay, I'm regressing here, and I'm choosing to react. And
Mhm.
that's just that awareness of being powerless was powerful.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. I work with one executive, and she has always been the family hero.
Mhm.
And now she runs a $300 million business that her family started, and she's the executive. And she is so driven by guilt, always making sure everybody's happy. And to change that, because the work was not about not feeling guilty, because she didn't want to feel guilty. So, in order to not feel guilty, she was always doing stuff that, as the executive, she should not have been doing. Instead, she learned to change her relationship with guilt. And whenever she feels guilty, she welcomes it as an old friend. Oh, here's my guilt again. Fantastic. I feel it in my stomach. Wonderful. Okay. Welcome, guilt. Now, what do I need to do? Again, that aligns with my vision and who I want to be as an executive for this business and a leader in my family. How do I want to show up? Do I want to let the guilt dictate? No.
Mhm.
So I love it when those patterns sneak up for me. I always take that as a kind of a lesson for myself. Here I am. Here it is. Here's the 5 year old in me still there. All right. Beautiful. That programming was powerful. It was the secret to my success. It allowed me to thrive and survive. And I'm still carrying the pattern. So I owe a debt of gratitude to those patterns, even though they will cut me off at the knees if I let them be in charge, because that's the 5 year old in
Mhm.
charge.
Mhm.
And I love it though when I do it now, when that 5 year old takes over, when that caveman comes out of me, I do it with adult sophistication, right? I can do it with a sharp edge to my words, say all the right things in a way that will let you know you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm right.
Right.
You're wrong. And when I do that at home or when I do it at all, it's going 180 degrees from the vision of who I want to be.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think just recognizing that in that moment, by making yourself feel better about being right, look at the damage you're doing, not only to how it's impacting the person, but to the relationship as well. And sometimes we lose sight of that, right? There's something Brene Brown says around, do you want to be right or do you want to get it right? And that just
Mhm.
that
That's right.
latter piece is so much more important. Getting it right is in that scenario, you're cultivating the relationship, you're looking at it more from an opportunity perspective that, okay, as much as it's aggravating me and irritating me, how can I make the most out of this situation? And that's why I like, even in the negotiation standpoint, when I'm working with people, it's not about always walking away with everything yourself and feeling good about leaving the other person with nothing. It's about how can you leave both people walking away feeling good about what they got. And it's those interactions that are so powerful that we can make
Mhm.
such a lasting effect through how we show up.
That's right. One thing I love when helping people clarify their vision as a leader, I think the big question is one I love that most people don't ask. They'll think, how do I want others to perceive me as a
Yes.
leader? That's great, but it's still self centric. The question I love asking is, how do you want others to feel about themselves as a result of your leadership?
Mhm.
To me, that's the question. Imagine if you're the person that when you show up, people feel better about themselves. They feel confident, competent, and they're willing to do whatever it takes. That's the impact. But we want them to like us and feel good about us. And it's just the edification of our own success drivers and our own ego. Take that out of the game. Imagine again, you show up in a way that they feel elevated. That's powerful.
Yeah.
And as leaders, I think about for me, leading starts with leading yourself. So we're all leaders. Lead yourself first. That's the name of my book coming out in October. Eh? I love it. And I believe at a core level, before you can lead others, you have to lead yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where I think discipline is so important. Holding yourself accountable, being responsible, like you said earlier, too. That's how you lead yourself. And I often equate that to parenting as well, because I could sit there and preach about all the things to my son that you shouldn't be doing or you should be doing this, but it means nothing if I'm not role modeling it, if I'm not leading by example. And
Mhm.
that's where I think kids watch and learn rather than listening and then
Well,
getting
and that's the great thing. You are leading by example, whether you're intentional about it or not.
yes.
You throw out something that's very difficult for me, discipline. And I love it. I know it's that consistency that is the thing that makes it. But it's so funny. I think that's part of the reason I have a lot of education because it provided a discipline for me. I could go back to school
Yes.
and know that there's goals and I don't have to overthink it. And or go to a meditation retreat and they have the structure. It's all there. I just have to go and show up. Creating that discipline on my own is always the difficulty.
Mm.
Getting back to the gym, getting back to the meditation cushion. It's so I so easily get caught up in the moment and then lose sight of that. That's been a hard one for me. How do you find yourself? How do you do that? How do you cultivate that discipline for yourself that allows you to have that presence and awareness?
I think it's just not letting myself off the hook. And I know that could sound a bit too extreme, but it's these are the things I need to do to be able to deliver the way I want to deliver. So if I'm not hitting the gym in the morning, or if I'm not doing my breath work or my cold shower, then I'm not starting the day off on the right footing. And that's going to basically translate into everything I do. And I won't have the energy I need to deliver for my clients, for everything else I'm trying to do. So that's I know that. So that's where it's a non-negotiable. And I learned that even more so during COVID, where I was experiencing depressive thoughts. And so I know what the alternative is as well. If I
Mhm.
don't hold myself accountable and fall off of those things that serve me. So it's taken years of experimentation to realize what
Mhm.
works and what doesn't work. And I know the consequences. So it's a
Yeah.
pretty easy payoff.
It's so interesting because I think of it right away. I always think in terms of models, and I go back to vision. So it sounds you have clarity of the vision, how you want to show up. And I've always believed that change is a function of vision, clarity, right? But that's not enough. The vision alone is a dream. But there's dissatisfaction. Then, vision and dissatisfaction drive that kind of behavior
Yes.
that you, because some people just feel the dissatisfaction, don't have any vision. That's the depression,
Hmm.
or that's just, you're just stuck.
Hmm.
When you just have vision without dissatisfaction, you're just dreaming. But when you put them both together and then take steps, okay, that's how we create change.
Hmm.
So I love hearing that formula, and it kind of reiterates for me the importance. I talk to my clients about having clarity of their vision, and I get going 100 miles an hour. I'm like, yeah, I have it somewhere. I have it written down on a sheet of paper. I'm like, no, if I can't read, it should be tattooed in my brain. Unless it is, then I just end up scrambling.
Yep. Yeah.
How do you keep that boil down clarity of that vision? Who are you becoming as a person? Because we are consistently evolving.
Yes.
It's so interesting though in our culture. Like the model is you evolve a lot, go through college, get married, have a baby, and then the evolution stops.
Yep.
Then you just live out your years doing the same thing over and over and
Yes.
over and over. And now I love it. The next generation, they talk about rebelling against that. Folks are not loyal to their organizations. And then you have the old timer saying it's these next generation is lazy and they don't want to work. Maybe it's a symptom of bad leadership and a correcting force of values where people are realizing that our job, counter to what you might believe from the industrial revolution,
Hmm.
that humans are not just cogs in the machine of consumerism,
Yes.
that there's something more, and it's not just about working harder. But if that's what's ingrained, because you want to be valuable, you want to show up, make mom or dad happy, so you work hard because dad worked hard and grandpa work hard, great, that's our value.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah. And I think we're all coming back to, as you were talking about, coming into this world as the youngest child and then being programmed, we do get conditioned and we can make a choice in that too. So for example, with exercise, I know the positive reinforcement I get in terms of how I feel and how sharp my mind is and how much energy I have throughout the day. So all of that is positive reinforcement for me, right? And then it's just a conditioned behavioral response. You can think of it in that way too.
It's really interesting. If once my experience is once I start a discipline, man, it keeps going. It's like there's momentum that it makes it easy. It's harder to stop, but it's like that first step, getting it going, getting back to the cushion, getting back to the gym, getting the cold shower is easy. You just turn it to cold.
Yeah. I still have been doing it for years now, and it's still, there's not a single day where I could say I'm looking forward to it. So it's still a struggle every morning, and there's a lot of self talk. But yeah. afterwards, I'm glad I did it. Yeah.
It's so interesting, though, right? It's uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so then we recoil against what we call uncomfortable. But the reality is, uncomfortable is a label we're giving a sensation. And that's all it is, a
Hmm.
sensation in our body. We have a little lake house in Michigan here up north, and my son was spraying me with a hose. And it was cold. And I just stood there. And he's like, "How are you just standing there? It's freezing." And I said, "It's really important to teach yourself how not to react to what's uncomfortable. But can you just be with whatever it is?" There's so much strength
Yeah.
and resilience in being able to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's so funny though. I watch myself when it's hot outside and I'm uncomfortable with the heat, and I'll say, "Oh my God, it's miserable out."
Yeah.
And the reality is, it's not miserable about out. It is what it is. I'm miserable. Owning that, back to that 100% ownership, accountability, responsibility. There is no meaning to the world outside of what we're projecting onto it.
Yes.
I've heard people in the Michigan winter say it's awful. No, it's not awful. You're awful. It is what it is.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think even when people talk about their faith or their concept of God or the worldly experience, I've come to understand and learn that it's all a representation of your inner state. The God you experience in the world outside of is a representation of how you feel inside. And I think that's essentially it, right? If you're unhappy or you're miserable, then that's what you're going to experience in the world around you.
Yeah,
So it comes back to free will and knowing that how big you want your fishbowl to be and how
that's
do you want
right.
it to be? Yeah.
The powerful thing, I go back to A, we've got this neural programming. So now it's baked into our how our brain is functioning. But as the old saying goes, with our thoughts, we create the world. We have the ability to control our thinking. And as we change our thought process, our brain actually rewires itself. How cool is that to think that you can indeed teach an old
Yes.
dog new tricks?
Yep.
Thank God.
Yes.
It's possible, though. We have the ability to change. Some people, though, it's a hard uphill climb. They're very entrenched in doing it a certain way. But if you're committed, you can be the person you are meant to be in this lifetime. And that's powerful.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Kevin, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been a blast.
This is a fantastic conversation. This is blessed. I love it. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure's all mine. And now, for listeners that want to learn more about your work or if they want to get in
Mhm.
touch with you, what are some ways they can do that?
Sure. One thing I put together specifically for this discussion, I call it the Vision Mastery Playbook. So for folks, leaders who realize how important it is to gain clarity of their vision, and now you see after this conversation, it's an essential element. Make sure you've got some clarity of your vision. I put together this Vision Mastery Playbook. Download that and go through the exercise. Gain clarity of your vision. That's one thing I'd like to offer all the listeners. Secondly, check me out. I'm on all social media. My website, maysleadership.com. That easy. MAYS leadership.com. Find me, hit me up on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Kevin Mays. I'm out there creating content all the time and loving conversations like this. It's rare I get to have this kind of a great, deep conversation. So thank you so much. And thank you for the listeners for participating. This is just dynamite.
Yes. Thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate your time as well and your willingness to do this.
It's a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Sounds good.